All right, y'all, welcome to Spirit Talks. This is our very first inaugural Spirit Talks. I'm super excited about this. It's been something I've been wanting to get going for a little while here. So, my hope for these Spirit Talks is very simple. I want to create a space or an opportunity, if you're listening to the podcast or you're listening online, where we can take a look at different backgrounds, different faith traditions, various spiritual paths and life experiences, and we can come together to explore the wisdom that's guided humanity for thousands and thousands of years. One of the interesting things about religion and spirituality is there are many different paths, and people often fight about these paths and fight about rightness, and this is right and this is wrong. But when you take a deep dive in to the religions, to the spirituality, to the paths, what you find is there are more commonalities than differences. And commonalities are what bring us together. So that is the goal for Spirit Talks. So today's Spirit Talk is specifically about the strawberry moon. We're coming into the strawberry moon right now. And the strawberry moon has a history. So today's talk is going to be about a season of ripening in an instant gratification world. We live in a place today that everything is at our fingertips and it comes to us fast and quick, and we want something and within minutes it can be in our hands. But that is not the energy of the strawberry moon. So the strawberry moon is about timing, it's about growth, it's about becoming ready, and it's about trusting the natural process of transformation. And this idea of trusting the natural process, the process that Mother Earth gives us, the process that has been bestowed to us for millennia, appears in spiritual traditions all over the world. So today, I want to look at this specific question. What if the most important things in life can't be rushed? What if we are not behind schedule? What if we are simply still ripening? Let's take a look at the strawberry moon and the wisdom behind it. So, throughout human history, people have experienced time very differently than we do today. Throughout history, there were no smartphones. We couldn't tap a button on a computer in our hand to look at what the weather was going to be like. There were no digital calendars. There weren't even clocks hanging on the wall. People understood what time it was by paying attention to nature. The moon told them where they were in the cycle of a month. The stars guided travel. The changes in the seasons guided planting and harvesting. The behavior of animals signaled changes in the weather. Even now, think about if you have a pet at home, if you have a dog at home, what happens when the weather starts to change? Have you ever noticed you have a dog that gets scared and apprehensive when a storm is about to come, and you notice the tail drop between his legs and you notice him running and hiding or her running and hiding? They didn't look on a phone app to see, oh, there's a storm coming. They still pay attention to nature. They recognize the signs that their environment is giving them that a change is coming. Humanity used to do that, but we don't anymore. There was a time when nature was not separate from daily life. Nature was the classroom. Nature was the calendar. Nature was the teacher. The strawberry moon isn't just a fancy poetic name that we can use today. It's practical information. It was nature's way of saying, pay attention. Something is becoming ready. Something is ripening. Something is entering a new phase. So when we stop and think about it, that message isn't just true for strawberries. It's true for people, relationships, healing, recovery, and personal growth. The most important things in our life happen gradually. Think about friendships. They deepen over time. Trust develops over time. Wisdom develops over many generations. Healing takes time. Even confidence and self-love happens over time. We don't necessarily notice the growth while it's happening. In fact, many times we want to rush the growth. But one day we look back and we realize we're not the same person that we used to be. How about you? Have you had those instances where you've looked back 5 years or 10 years and you say, oh, wow, I'm not the same person I was back then? That's what the strawberry moon reminds us of, that growth has a rhythm, it has a beat. There's a time and there's a season. So what does the strawberry moon represent? In nature, the strawberry moon represents the time of year. In fact, they named it the strawberry moon because that moon that happens this time of year, right after the summer solstice, or the longest day of the year, was what told people wild strawberries are probably ready for harvest. It's time to go out and look for the strawberries. It was the moon, the full moon after the longest day of the year, that told them it was time to go find the strawberries. It was time to eat and feast on what nature had given. So why farming? Have you ever noticed that many spiritual lessons revolve around farming or gardening or seeds or sowing? Why? Let's take a look at that. Even today, seeds make sense for growth. We know if we ever go out to find wild berries that there's a time to find them. We know that in the springtime, we get excited because we can plant seeds that will grow in a few months. What are some of the other indications in our day-to-day that growth has happened and it's time for harvest? Many people have gardens that they look forward to going and harvesting from. One big one that I know for many people who don't grow anything will tell you they kill everything and have zero knowledge of planting, still get very excited when farmers market season comes around, because they know that is the time of year where they can get fresh produce right from a local farm. That's exciting. So why do spiritual teachings involve around these things? Jesus talked about it. Jesus talked about seeds. Buddha talked about seeds. The Hindu teachings use agricultural imagery. Indigenous traditions draw wisdom from the cycles of nature. Why? Because throughout human history, everybody understood agriculture. Jesus spoke to the crowds and many were farmers. Buddhist teachings spread through villages and people understood planting and harvest. Indigenous elders shared wisdom. Communities depended directly on the land. Agriculture wasn't a metaphor, it was everyday life. Imagine if a spiritual teacher were speaking today. What might they use examples of? They might use examples of social media or smartphones or traffic, maybe email, maybe technology. Ancient teachers used farming because it was the universal language that everyone understood. But farming also reveals timeless truths. The first lesson is that every harvest begins long before the harvest season. When we see beautiful fruit on the tree, we're only seeing the final chapter. We don't see all the work that went into getting that fruit to grow. We don't see the planting or the watering. We don't see the waiting. We don't see the storms and the setbacks and the bunnies eating the harvest or the deer eating the harvest. We don't see the patience it took. Life works the same way. Every visible success has invisible roots. Every strong relationship, every healthy recovery, every meaningful transformation, they all have roots that we don't see. They have roots that grow underground long before the harvest comes. The second lesson in this is that growth is often invisible before it becomes visible. Those roots are developing, life is forming, energy gathers, and growth occurs. Many people have experienced seasons in their life where it seemed like nothing was happening. Things just kind of stalled out. But later they realized that those were the seasons that prepared them for what came next. A friend of mine shared a story with me just the other day. She, several years back, her mother, for her gift, gave her black peony seeds. And she has a walkway that goes up in front of her door, and she has a little garden area there, and she tossed the black peony seeds in that garden area. And this was 5 or 6 years ago, and she lives in California, and nothing ever happened. No growth, no black peonies, no flowers. And she was walking up to her door the other day, and she glanced over, and guess what she saw? Black peony flowers. 6 years after she tossed those seeds in that soil, she ends up with black peony. So she took a picture, she sent it to her mom. She was very excited about it. But it didn't happen in her timing. It didn't happen in the expected timing. It occurred when everything aligned for it to occur. So she didn't stand over these black peonies and demand that they grow faster. She actually figured the seeds were duds and they weren't going to grow. The same way farmers don't stand over strawberry plants and demand that they grow faster. There are many things that do not speed growth. Anxiety, worry, impatience. None of those speed growth. Growth unfolds in its own time. And the lesson of the strawberry moon is that we should too. So let's look at these 4 traditions we talked about in the beginning, because they all come to one truth. We're going to look at Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, and the indigenous wisdom traditions. These are different cultures, they're different histories, they're even different languages. Yet all of them seem to arrive at a remarkably similar truth. This journey of faith is an interesting thing for me because I started out on a faith path that, like many people, I was born into. And I went down the path of Christianity to the point I actually went to Bible college. I became an ordained Christian minister and all of these things. I'm very close with Jesus and I love Jesus very much. However, I knew that there was immense wisdom in these other traditions as well. And I believe that the picture is bigger than the one narrow path I was being shown. So I decided to do some research and investigation of my own. And through that, I've had the blessing of studying many of these different cultures and meeting many people in these different cultures. And I believe now that there are many ways to get to the harvest, if you will. So let's start with looking at Hinduism. In Hindu philosophy, some of the most beloved teachings come from the Bhagavad Gita. So in this, there's a story where Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, you have the right to your actions, but not to the fruit of your actions. Think about that for a minute. Most of us spend our whole lives focused on results, not on what gets us to those results. In fact, some people might even say that other people are unethical or they are hardcore in that all they care about is the results. They don't care about the path that it takes them to get there. They will literally do things to harm others to get there. But Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, you have the right to your actions, but not to the fruit of your actions. So it's completely opposite of the way many of us live right now. Most of us spend our time focused on those results. We want to know if we're succeeding, if we're successful. We want immediate evidence that our efforts are working. We want a guarantee. We want certainty. In fact, oftentimes we ask for these guarantees and we ask for certainty when we're making purchases or when we're doing different things. But Krishna taught something different. He says, focus on your actions, focus on your effort, focus on living according to your dharma. Dharma is the highest purpose and responsibility, what your soul came here to do. Krishna says, plant the seed, tend the garden, and do your part. But don't become consumed by when the fruit will show up. A farmer cannot force a harvest. A farmer can only create conditions for growth. This teaching invites us to focus on what we can control and release what we cannot. Let's take a look at Buddhism. Every action plants a seed. Buddhism offers a similarly remarkable teaching to Hinduism. Many people think that the word karma means reward and punishment, but karma is really more about cause and effect or action that happens. So every thought we have in Buddhist tradition, every thought we have plants a seed. Every action we take plants a seed. Every habit we form plants a seed. Over time, those seeds shape who we become. They shape our karma. If we repeatedly practice anger, anger is going to grow. If we repeatedly practice gratitude, gratitude will grow. If we practice compassion, compassion grows. Buddha taught that transformation happens one moment at a time, in the moment we're in right now. You have one breath, you have one choice, you have one action, you have one day. Again, we find the same message. Pay attention to what you're planting. Let's take a look at Christianity. The fruits of the Spirit. In Christianity, Paul describes what he calls the fruits of the Spirit. Think about that word for a moment. As I go through the fruits of the Spirit, think about the word fruit. The fruits of the Spirit are love, joy, peace and patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Again, let's look at the word fruit. Not achievements, not trophies, not accomplishments, fruits. Why fruit? Because again, fruit grows. Fruit develops over time. Fruit emerges naturally when the roots are healthy. You can't force it, just like you can't force peace. You can cultivate conditions where peace can grow. You can cultivate conditions where love can grow. You can cultivate conditions where patience can grow. Again, the image is agricultural because growth is natural, but growth takes time. Now, finally, let's take a look at that indigenous wisdom of trusting the seasons. Many indigenous traditions teach us that human beings are not separate from nature, even though the world we live in today completely teaches us the opposite. Those indigenous traditions teach us that we're part of nature. Nature is a teacher. The moon teaches cycles. The land teaches reciprocity. The seasons teach timing. One of the most important teachings found throughout this wisdom is that every season serves a purpose. There is a season for planting, a season for growth, for harvest, and for rest. The culture we live in now teaches that we should celebrate constant productivity, but nature teaches balance. For nature, winter is not a failure. Rest is not a failure. Waiting is not failure, nor is healing. Every season has value and has purpose. So what's the problem with this instant gratification world we live in? Let's bring these teachings right to our modern life, huh? How can we use this information to help us right now? We live in a world right now unlike any world that humanity has ever experienced before us. For most of human history, people had to wait. They had to wait for food, for letters and communication. They had to wait to travel. They had to wait for news and for opportunities. Today, everything comes to us at the snap of a finger. Messages arrive instantly, packages in days, sometimes minutes or hours, if you're willing to pay an extra $10. Answers we can get in seconds. The human brain loves immediate rewards. And technology has made life simple and easier in many ways, but it's also created an expectation that everything should happen immediately. But the most important things in life still operate on ancient timelines. There are many things you cannot build instantly, including trust, recovery, healing, deep and meaningful friendships, even purpose, wisdom. Those we cannot cultivate immediately. Technology moves at internet speeds, but human transformation still happens at garden speeds. I believe many people suffer because they expect garden speed growth to happen at internet speed. So we become frustrated with ourselves, with others. We wonder why we're not further along, why we're not healed yet, why there isn't a pill for that, or a spray for that, or a drop for that. Why aren't we successful yet? Why we're not where we think we should be. But perhaps growth is not late. Perhaps growth is simply unfolding according to its own nature. It's one of the reasons I chose to homeschool my children, because I believed that there's a way to learn, that we are all born innate learners. And the way society works right now, we seek for instant learning, instant knowledge, and instant wisdom, but that comes with time, experience, practice, and doing. It comes with unplugging and disconnecting from the technological world we're in sometimes. And I encourage you to do the same every now and then. So let's take a look at for a moment at what's ripening in your life. As we return to the strawberry moon, I'd like you to take a moment to reflect on your own life. What's currently ripening in your life? Confidence, maybe, healing, self-worth, self-love, recovery, maybe a relationship, courage, forgiveness. Maybe it's a dream you've been quietly nurturing over a long period of time. Often we focus so much on what hasn't happened that we don't notice what's already growing. The strawberry moon invites us to pay attention to what's growing, to notice what's developing underneath the surface, to recognize when it is ready, and to trust the process of becoming. Ripening is not the same thing as harvesting. Ripening is a sacred process that comes before readiness. And perhaps that's where we find ourselves today. Not finished, not complete, not behind, simply becoming, growing, and ripening. The strawberry moon reminds us that nature never rushes. Everything arrives in its season. The moon doesn't rush, nor do the seasons. The strawberries don't rush. And perhaps we don't need to rush either. Perhaps our lives are not behind schedule and we are exactly where we need to be. Perhaps we're still simply ripening. Now I have a few questions that I'm going to ask people to contemplate on here, and I will ask the video as well. Go ahead and take a moment, write these down, think about it. What's currently ripening in your life that deserves more patience and trust? Which of today's teachings resonated with you most? and why? Have you ever experienced something that took much longer than you wanted but ultimately arrived exactly when it should? In a world built around instant gratification, where have you learned the value of patience? Those questions I leave with you today, and I thank you for listening to our first episode of Spirit Talks.